And I'll put it full screen, and there is something, somebody's asking something, you just let me know. Hmm?
Okay.
Okay, can you see my screen now?
Yes, I can, but
it's not full screen mode like that. Okay.
I think you should press F5. Yeah, exactly.
So now is full screen mode. Hmm? Can you see it full screen, Grigori?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
So I can start.
Can I just make a short introduction to guys? So,
of course you can.
So guys, we meeting today, tonight, or depending on where you are in Moscow or in Italy. Please welcome Cristina Pallini. She's a professor of Politecnico di Milano, great architect and great lecturer. And I was fortunate to be taught by Cristina a few years ago and to write my thesis in Politecnico Milan a few years ago by her leadership. And today she's going to talk about, if I'm not mistaken, on function, form, and architectural expression, depending regarding the old markets. Am I right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, so then I think we can start.
Yes, so let us start. I had in mind a different lecture, but while I was preparing it, I thought that I had, sorry, okay. Just a moment. I thought that there were some key notions that I have to pass on to you. It was not just about the type of task that you have, which is reusing, transforming the VAW market, which I've been looking at, and it's an amazing building. But it's about something which is more focal to the training of architects, and it's like a bigger umbrella, which is eventually embracing even the transformation of market architecture. It's about function, form, and architectural expression. How far form should follow the function, or how far function should be can be favored by a certain form. I think it's a key issue, exactly like the issue of reusing, of giving buildings a second life. It's a problem that has always been around ever since architecture has been around. So the thing is to put our thoughts in order to where the function is rather fluid, and I divided into 3 chapters my lecture. The first part concerns coffee houses and how the habit of having coffee was spread in Italy, and how these things in the early stage didn't have a proper building for the purpose, but rather the question that was crucial was that these kind of structures were clustering around the squares. So they had a key location in the sea, in the most dense and the most architecturally prestigious area of the city. And we will see when the coffee house is finally crystallizing into a building type. Finally, in between, I will talk about a problem, which is an opportunity rather than a problem, which is happening in many cities in Europe, and I believe even in Russia, which is this, there is a term used to define this kind of spaces, even though I don't like it much, but it's called anti-cafe, meaning it's a kind of space which has a potentially clustering different kind of activities like co-working, meetings, rental by the hour. And it's called anti-cafe because in that spaces, instead of paying for what you are having, like a coffee or what you are drinking or eating, you are paying by the hour, and the other, the possibility to eat and drink is given for free. So this is a case, once again, where we don't have a building type which is appropriate. It is not yet crystallized in a building type, yet what is turned to be crucial is the relationship with the city. Finally, I am presenting you a thesis project which was defended last April, and it's exactly the same topic you are going to face. It's a building, and presently it used to be the municipal market in a town in the middle of it, in the central Italy. And our project consisted in the reshaping, the partial demolition and reshaping this building for a new use. So it's 3 blocks. Let us start. And what are really the terms that are crucial to this lecture? Is the idea of function, the idea of form and architectural expression, and the mutual relationship between architecture and urban space. So let's move in the first part, which is the spatial frameworks for a hybrid program, Italian coffee houses. I know it's back in time, but it's quite fascinating. Meaning it's something happening. It's a habit. So it's something, it's not a codified function. It's a habit that spread in the 16th century in northern Italy, particularly in Venice and Padua, consisting in drinking coffee. So it's something which is still there. But initially, everything started because some botanicals from Venice took us the coffee from Egypt, and they wrote a book, and they also reported on the properties of coffee, that if you drank coffee, you would be awake, you would have in full force, able to undertake major efforts. And so the coffee drinking really became fashionable, first for the rich people, but then it spread. The coffee was taken into Padua in the botanical garden, and very, very quickly it spread. It's amazing because, and this is something that I couldn't believe, but I heard it by a professor when I was in the AGACAM program at MIT, that originally coffee was considered exactly like alcohol for the Muslim communities, meaning that when you drink alcohol, you somehow lose control. I mean, if you drink too much, of course. Similarly, they were not allowing the drinking of coffee. The coffee drinking and alcohol drinking was used by the dervishes. So there was like the dervish lodge, like the place of the dervishes. They were religious people, but they thought that you might achieve a state of communion with God other than praying, also by losing your full control. And therefore, those were, this is a depiction of a dervish place. The name is Tekke, a place where coffee was used to be drank. And really, the habit of drinking coffee all around the Muslim world, it's concerning the cities and the trade routes, but it's something happening on the street. It's not something that I mean, it's happening both on the street and in dedicated places. So, sorry, this is our 2 views showing the coffee house, the traditional coffee houses in Istanbul. But what happened in Italy is that this habit of drinking coffee eventually triggered a change, and it was the kind of giving a functional density to spaces already existing, such as the main squares of the city concerned. This is the beautiful St. Mark Square in Venice. And it's not the case that the main coffee houses, they were clustering all around the square. So it's a kind of space that the city has already is an asset, and this asset is being seen as a potential for the new activities to be performed. So this is a St. Mark Square today, and it's amazing because there is a continuity. Ever since these coffee places were established, they're still there. Now they're very poshy and very, very expensive. And this thing was so pervasive in the society that even there is a comedy by Goldoni, an important figure of the Italian literature, which is the coffee house. I mean, it's a story which is happening around the coffee house, because usually the coffee house was a place where this simple gesture, apparently banal, of drinking coffee, and the fact that people gather there, and the fact that people are identified as groups with the same political ideas, also, or the same with some affinities. I mean, the coffee house became an identity feature, and there were ancillary activities. For example, the first printing house in Venice was set next to the coffee house. So this is, again, the thing is moving on and on and on, and these are painting and pictures. And the idea here is that the quality of space of the interior is mainly given to the richness of furniture, but its attractiveness has to do with the strategic urban location and the fact that it's like intercepting people coming and going and meeting. So here is just some examples of the coffee houses in Venice and how they are still at the present time. To continue on this topic, I want to go into a case when this coffee drinking thing became a building, crystallized into a building type. But what my point here is that this crystallization has taken a certain shape and certain architectural features that wouldn't be the same if this had happened elsewhere. What I mean to say is that the city of Padua, which is now in a Google Earth photo, it's a city with certain features. It's a very old city, very close to Venice. It's a university city. I'm just trying to cut the long story short, because here is not about history of Italian cities, but about doing a project. It has a system of central square, each dedicated to a certain commerce, or fruit and vegetables, meat, fish, and so on. And it's not by chance. So once again, you see the star is indicating the coffee house, the first coffee house, which is a self-standing building designed mainly to have a coffee house. There is nothing else than that. And it's not by chance. So the location, I mean, the urban role of and the potentialities of the building, given its position into the urban fabric, is a key factor to determine even the quantitative aspects of the building and the way the building is appears, its elevation and its spatial syntax. I just want to see that here, to tell you that here is a university. So this is a road which was replacing the Roman wall. This is the main, the town hall, the old town hall, two of the commercial squares, and the presence of the university, which is here. This is the main university. And I'm telling you this because I think that even when you talk about Viborg and the market and what's happening, what could become, what kind of change we could think of, for me, it's important that you ask yourself some questions concerning the urban potential of that building and why the building was there. I know, for example, because I was reading the brief that the organizers of the seminars gave you, there is some hint about the building having replaced the previous square building where the market was being held. So this, for me, at the starting stage, is certainly an aspect we could be crucial for you to develop a good project. So here we see a building which is in between the catchment area, let's say. A catchment area is given by the market, so the coming and going, a daily business and toil of people, and the presence of a a significant community of the students attending the university. And this thing of is not a functional, it's not a functional or a quantitative fact. Yes, there is the idea that the students could be potential users because they would drink a coffee. But even the way the building is conceived, and we shall see it in a moment, is such that there are parts, that there are subsequent level of accessibility, as if there are very public areas, like more intimate areas. It's really, the building is just a kind of lung. It's making the city breathe, and is a kind of extension of the open space of the city. This is because I know I'm not talking about the market, but I'm talking of a building which, like a market, is part of the urban life, and its reason of existence has to do with the presence of people and with how the people is channeled into the space, and how the building is grafted onto this dynamic and vital organism, which is the city. So here we see the Caffè Pedrocchi. It's a building dating back to 1831, and its extension, which is a pastry shop. It's fantastic to see, but I just want to tell you, but I won't dwell on the stylistic expression, because the architect is the same, Giuseppe Iappelli, an architect who was also an engineer. He designed many public buildings in Padua, and he was working, he was designing gardens, doing reclamation works. He traveled to England. So it's a complex personality with a complex training, and able to handle style, painting, but also the technicalities of draining and so on. So it's really a genius of its time. Let's see this building, and I just want we could have an historian, and this historian will tell us how the building started, who was the client, and why he wanted the building. But that's not the point today. Today is to appreciate, for me, the thresholds and how the passing from being outside in the street and being inside is mediated by many buffer areas, and how this relationship between the city and the building is really translating into geometrical system, into a latent order, into decisions that have a decisive impact on the shape and dimension and organization of space. Here, for example, we see that the building is lining a street. So it's a kind of street covered and climatic, with a climatic comfort, which is set parallel to the street. And this is the way you enter. There is a portico, and you have these columns. So there is this kind of classical thing, and this kind of also you may say, okay, this is a building of the past. Obviously they use columns, but if we try to step back and to historicize the decisions, it's like using a building which is very, let's say, is like how do you say, pagan. It's like a coffee drinking, but kind of celebrating and monumentalizing it, and giving the dignity of a kind of temple. It's like saying, this is a temple of coffee, the temple of conviviality. And here are some drawings that show you how the building is set. So I don't know if you see my pointer. You see that the building is parallel to the road. And the building is totally, you can penetrate through the building because the doors were kept open, and you would step from a threshold into another threshold, into another threshold. So you see one threshold is the portico, then here you are outside. You are not into the building proper. You are in between the city and the building. You can have your coffee, you can sip your juices, but if it's raining, you're not gonna catch rain. Then there is another room, and that these rooms, they had they were decorated with the geographical maps, and they still today, they used to have, and they have today, all the newspapers, so that people could sit, have a coffee, and read the newspaper for free. Then there is another transition, there is another room, and then there is the mid part where you had the coffee being done, and there is the desk where the coffee is being distributed. So you see that the function is not enough to justify the form, because coffee is about, this is a gathering place. It's like an elongated system, a street, we could say, a building in the shape of a street, which is following a compositional principle, which is Baroque, meaning the enfilade, a set of spaces laid along a common axis, the axis being the axis of the building. So you see the entrance is central, and you come across these portals. We shall see them in a moment, and there is a kind of apex when you are here, and then you flow in, you flow out both ways. What I would like now to appreciate, when we look at the cross section, you will see it in a moment that the building, this notion of symmetry and this notion of order is being contradicted in many ways. For example, you would tend to think that the upper level is following the same syntax. That's not true, because the lower level, the key issue is this kind of indoor street. The upper level instead is a cluster of rooms, each identifying a certain decorative theme, like the Moresque room, the Egyptian room, the Pompeian room. And each room was, back in the days, but even today, was used by the clubs, clubs of students, clubs of people, and was used and was an identity feature for this fluid community of the students of Padua, students and yet and other people. In the meantime, we see that there is a ballroom. There is a ballroom above. Obviously, there are all the functional spaces. So here you can see the enfilade. So this idea that your eyes and your feet, they follow the same route, and you have a perception of what's going on. You have a visual command over space. And this is the comparison of the ground floor and the upper floor. As I said, you see here the ground floor, the coffee proper. Then you have all the service area with the bakery, all the service area. Then you have the building is shaped in this U shape, so that there is a little square. So once again, these transition spaces are inflected in many, many, many different ways. So you have the portico, but here you have a little square which is totally encompassed by the building, which is being used for open air ceremonies and to have coffee when there is an increase in clients. Then there is a portico, and then this hall and this building, even though it was built back in 1831, is being run and is like conveniently the way the building is shaped and the way the space is organized is allowing to manage the building in different units. And even from the cost efficiency point of view, the building is a brilliant thing, because you can hire this room for a wedding. In the meantime, the coffee is always free. Then you can hire the portico. And you see that here, the second portico, the building looks like being symmetrical, but is not, because while the portico, this portico on the left leads through the Coffee Road. The portico to the right instead leads to the stair that reach the upper floor. And here you see how the way space is shaped, the spatial syntax of the upper floor is not derived in a banal way from the geometry from the building footprint. I would like also you to notice these pocket spaces. You know, sometimes you see in movies depicting scenes in late 18th century when people are peeping out the secret doors. So there is an independence. So the space, the void, has a shape, and it has there is a proportion between the footprint of each room, its height, and its decorative apparatus. And there is a space in between. So it's not like deriving from the external wall the shapes by geometry, which is given by the perimeter of the block. Instead, it's like each space is a cell, and each cell is related in a way or another to the other. So really, there is for me, it's despite being so old, for me, it's a very modern idea of, it's a new thing. So there was no precedent for that. And for me, it's a very original solution. And it's a solution which is owing a lot to its context, meaning the users, the potential users, the city, and its density of activities in that point, but also in it's like a building for me, which lays in between the urban and architectural realms. Here, just to give you a sense of many times, I know because I'm teaching, so I see my students, it seems that at some point they are tired, they did what they had to do, and the design is over. This guy instead was not, I mean, so easygoing, because you see how once the shape of the room has been defined, once the proportion between the plan and the section are done, there is this thematization of the interior space, which is another story, and the character of each room is really fantastic. So here is just to tell you that this is the extension. It's the guy who owned this coffee house built a neighboring unit, and he built the pastry shop. And it's again, you know, it's almost impossible to establish where the city starts and when the building ends, because it's like the building is like a the portico of the city of Padua are embedded into the building, and really it's really an osmosis between the building and the city. And these are pictures of when the building had was under reparation some decades ago. Here you see the square used for the coffee occupying all the surrounding area. Okay, I thought there was other. So we are now closing with this story of the coffee. We could go further. The point is the building and the city for me is one of the chapter of your brainstorming activities, and what the building draws from the city, and what the building can give if it has to be a public building. I don't know, because I don't know what are your ideas, but we can talk later. I want now to move into a more current issues. Always thinking about a program which is not so clear cut, but once again claiming that the program, once you have a program, from the architectural point of view, you have yet not enough to start your narrative, because what you need is a narrative. So here I just trying to help in your brainstorming moment. I don't even know if these things make sense in Viborg. It's just that we were these are things we were working on with our students in the recent years. And I thought that they may offer a good example, particularly so because we shall see in one of these examples where the project is dealing with a market which was demolished and replaced by a new building for public use. So this mid part will lead us to the to land onto the ground of what is your topic for the workshop. So I entitled New Functional Clusters, Idea Stores, Anti-Cafes, and the like. So this is a diagram that was, I mean, all these things date back to like some 8-9 years ago. We were looking for something for our students to be somehow fresh. Maybe for you it's already fresh, it's not fresh, but then back then for us it was. So we are trying to shift the focus from a functionally clear programs to something more fluid. And we came across this rising importance of these co-working spaces. Obviously, this was before COVID, where you see this kind of manifesto is clearly showing that you are, it's in Italian, I'm sorry, but what you are paying is a working space with all the facilities like a printer, a scanner, or if you want the playground, if you want to play a conference hall, there is an availability of infrastructure and of spaces of different, with different characteristics, meeting rooms or whatever. But the thing is that you are paying by the hour, as I said. These are some of the earliest examples. One is in Paris, they are both in Paris actually. And it's what I want to, I mean, if you see this, you say, well, what's special about this? Actually, okay, they are nice, but there could be any place that you find. What is important and what I want to underline here is that this kind of building they need the city center, they need the catchment area, they need, you see, Beaubourg, Louvre. So there are two major attractors. Places where you would have tourists, places where if you need to meet somebody, it's central, it's accessible by public transportation and so on. It's like having a living room or a meeting room in the city center available for you to meet people, discuss. And this is happening, for example, I mean, I remember, this is a personal recollection, just to say that a few years ago, I was setting up a European research project, and we used to meet in Amsterdam, where there were entire building, because Amsterdam is an airport hub, and there they have an entire building offering spaces to be rented by the hour for this kind of, because you go from all over the world or from Europe, it's easier to go to Amsterdam than to have a connecting flight. So these things of having spaces of like expanding the inhabitability of the city in some key areas is becoming crucial. Along this line of thoughts, I just want to say, suggest that this is another thing. It's not exactly what the anti-cafe is. They are called idea stores, and I mean, is the idea of providing such an hybrid program in a less conventional way. So, for example, here, I mean, I don't know if it's written here in the text, but I had some newspaper cuttings. And this kind of idea stores, here we see Canary Wharf, which is not exactly a poor area of London, but they were also meant to bring some kind of services, such as library, in neighborhoods where people would never would feel intimidated in entering a library proper. So this is once again, there is a hybrid nature in the kind of function, but the buildings here, the building expression architecturally is still to be solved. So it's a more like an interior organization, but the architectural identity is still. And here we see these are two examples that are worth considering. We have to discuss later if this makes sense for the case of Viborg or not, but it's just to provoke discussion later on. This is instead a case of a market, because like I am kind of hovering between market and what a market can become. This is a nice project for a market in the Netherlands, I think, or in Spain. I'm not sure. And the thing here that the market is the main attractor, and it's like what you find at the level of the city, but actually the building has many other facilities, including parking, so that the market is a kind of hub for other things to happen. And what here it's interesting is that there are a sort of reinventions of features that are characterizing market architecture. For example, light from above, the huge roof, like a primary protective roof, which has a scale which is somehow giant, as opposed to the stools where the shops that are like they have like independent structure. So it's just a reference to say that even market architecture has been moving over the last year. And these are just another example of this public buildings, whose nature has to do with the social also demands of the context. This is the case of Medellin, where these buildings are built to provide some focal point of reference, entailing health services, sports activities, social activities for the residents, where usually the budget is an issue, but what makes the difference is the way the spatial articulation. In fact, in the picture above, you see how the section is not. The building is rich architecturally and spatially. It's not like a floor after floor subdivided into rooms. And this leads us to the market. I promised that there would be a market. This is a very interesting case. It's a city in Spain, and Teruel, a nice city in Spain, a city which has a lot of evidence of the period where this area was under Arab control. There is this Mudéjar architecture, which is very beautiful. But here is just to say that the city is a historic city with a lot of character. And this is a renovation project, which is concerning the demolition of a 1970 market and its replacement with this building, which is called the kind of dinosaur, because, and I've been reading, there are many architectural journals about this recent building, because it's like really laying in between the urban level and a building. You see, it's like when there is an earthquake and the ground is like upset, because here really the design is playing with the modification of the ground level, making these different levels easily accessible thanks to the gentle slope of the ramps, opening to the public not just the ground level but underground levels, and playing in this in-between area, making the building inhabitable at different levels, publicly accessible, and working a lot on the cross section and on the dialectic between the townscape, exterior townscape, and interior space, and the strong character of the interior space. So you see here these are the cross section. You see that really the first the main one of the let's say the conductor of the project is really the way the building is intercepting the level of the topography around. So I don't know, my friend Elder Casar Ribeiro, which is also Igor's friend, would call it a topographic project. I'm not so sure that this is a topographic project, but it's like saying that the architects, when they start their design, they first thought of how can I make the most of this sloping ground that I have. And you see here that is like there is this kind of this red part. So the building proper is below, and this part here is accessible, and the accessibility is not only because of there is a stair, but because the sloping ratio of this stair is so gentle that is walkable, and it's like pleasing experience. In fact, they are playing with light, they are playing with the molding the roof, and passing through a certain height, and then this height is getting lower. Here there are sections done in different points of the building, where you see these are projects where maybe the plan is simple, but really the key to the understanding of the project lays in the section, and even the trigger for the shape of the main narrative of the project is into the vertical dimension, and how spaces are compressed, and it's like breathing, like moment when you're like breathing and you're compressing and then you're expanding. So you see the use of the double height and so on. These things can be downloaded, because if you go to the site of this lecture will be made public to you, but also if you go to the website of these architects, you will be able to download all the drawings. I don't know how much this is fits into the discussions we are having, but just in case. So even here, I just want also to give you a sense of, because we are architects, that there is this, it's important to the relationship. So here, the relationship, the proportions. For example, there are spaces which have an ordinary dimension, and spaces that have a kind of giant order. And the interplay between the two is creating a quality, is like giving space a certain quality. So these are all the drawings, the technical drawings, the sections. I'm not gonna go into details. I'm just to make you curious about it. And it seems easy to understand how it works, yet it needs some attention. It's not so banal to understand how it works, because it's so rich, so simple, because it's a rectangular thing, and really section is a key. So in the interior, you see how the color plays a leading part, and the kind of structure is being exposed, and also becomes almost an expressive theme. And here is the similarity. You see the building. It was a market built in 1931. Before there was a market square, then they built the covered market, and then they demolished the covered market, and in 71, so that covered market lasted for 40 years. And in 1971, they rebuilt a modernist building, and here we are seeing the modernist building being pulled down to implement the project we just commented. I'm now moving to the last part of my presentation. I will be showing now a project which is a very similar theme. It's a market built in the 50s in Latina, and we had some graduation projects, and I'm showing you one. When the idea is to here is Latina. It's a city to south of Rome. You see a detail of the city center, and the light blue rectangle is the area we are looking at. Is the market. It's a building, and there is a debate in Latina about what to do with that market, and we had discussions with the town representative of the municipalities, and they are pushing forward this idea of converting the market into the house of taste. What is the house of taste? Nobody knows, because they say Latina is set in a reclaimed area. Our agriculture is gorgeous. We have a cuisine which is fantastic. Buffalo meat, fish, mozzarella cheese, all sorts of goodies. We need to promote our products. We need to attract tourists and so on. But what is the house of taste? With our student, and I supervise this project with Alexa Corolia, that will attend tutorials in the coming days. We had, before anything else, okay, there will be restaurants, there will be shops, but so what? I mean, so it was a really huge brainstorming to see what is a house of taste, to translate the program in architectural terms. So the project is really a trajectory through our brainstorming moments to trying to give bones and meat to this notion of house of taste, because we understood there will be restaurants, there will be a market, but how these things are happening in a way that is kind of new. It is like not just taking out the things as they are now and filling the building with something else. We need something which is stronger. So once again, our reasoning started by thinking about the building in relationship to the surrounding city. And here is the what we did. First of all, we said we are dealing with this market. Since the city was built, let's say overnight, because it was the plan dating back to 1931. In 32 there was the building, the city, and in 35 a new extension plan. The first thing we did is trying to see how the market was seen within the overall town planning scheme from the very beginning. And so we saw, for example, that the market initially was seen as a central, I mean, this is the main square, the meeting point of the main thoroughfares. And then when the city, the role of the city changed from being a rural center to a provincial capital, the market was pushed out, but no market was built at that time. And here we started another reasoning, always in the realm of architecture, forgetting about the market, how many square meters. For a moment, we really thought in architectural terms. And we thought that we wanted to understand the sense of this building into the overall architectural character of the city. And we came up with three key notions: the theatricality of the squares of Latina. So here you see in the picture to the right, you see that the city started to be built from the main square, as if the square is the embryo of the city, and is meant to stage all the behaviors of people, of the first settlers, because the city was to be settled and people had to move there. Then you have few very iconic buildings like the house of the farmer above. And other than that, what you have is urban blocks with a certain architectural character. We thought that one of our challenges was to play with these three concepts. And then we try to trace how the market came to be built only 20 years later, the foundation of the city, the different sites proposed, and the final project, which is number 5. So this is the market proper, the market as it is still now. And it's a building which is partly fit with the, I would say, the architecture, the rationalist architecture that was prevailing in Italy in the 1930s. But then, despite his symmetry, which is underlined by the entrance portico, the building is very functional, because this, you see here, these are the plans. You see the underground level, which is accessible by a ramp with all the fridges. This is a market where you have fishes, when you have meat, so the fridge is important. And even the kind of goods being sold, there is a kind of strategic way of positioning sellers. For example, they want to see the prices that their neighbors are placing, so that they can deal accordingly. And it's a concrete building with a structure of pillars, very strong, this underground level, and there is a basement. The building is set some 1 meter above the street. You see the facades, the elevation. There is a central area which is a little bit higher, so that natural ventilation and light can to facilitate natural ventilation and light. And this is the building as it is, abandoned at the moment. So the first question: what shall we do? Shall we keep it? Why should we demolish it? At the end, we decided that we needed kind of to unlock, but I don't know if it's the right decision. I think, I mean, I'm quite happy with the result, but I know, and this is what is important for me in a project, I know why some decisions were taken. I can trace rationally the process of the evolution of the project. I'd say I with Corolla, and mainly the protagonist, the student. He was very, very active and a great student. So here is the final result, the final decisions. We decided that we had to find a mediation between keeping everything and pulling down everything, and we had needed a good reason for that. And so our ideas was that we would keep the underground, the functional part, which was an asset, even that because Latina is built on a swampy area, so it's important when you cannot excavate much because the water is immediately there. So the fact that we had a ramp and we had an underground level, a part accessible by car, for us was an asset, particularly thinking that we would continue to have the market and the restaurants also, and the house of taste would need to be to be temporary, come si dice, to receive food and everything, and so it was an asset. But we thought that the building we should keep the footprint by maintaining the exterior wall, but the new structure should set itself free from this kind, we called it the dictatorship of the urban form. So we thought that architecture in Latina had been subservient to the urban layout, and that this building should kind of express this dialectic between the urban footprint and the plastic qualities of architecture. You can see here, this is the result. We will go through the steps that took us to this result. The blue element, so it's the new building. It's the new it's set with a different inclination, and it's the form of the building is such that as you move about, you keep your visual perception of the building changes. So maintain the market as an activity, maintain the car accessible basement. We changed the relationship with the pre-existing area. Yeah, I'm showing the project evolution, and so two key notions here are being conveyed. We thought, and this was a result of a discussion between us and the student, that the theater of taste, that in the house of taste, the restaurants and the presence, occasional presence of chefs, of cooks, should be staged as if in a theater, so that we should turn this notion of house of taste into theaters of stage. And that another notion for us was that these activities, market activities, should be kept at the ground floor, and that the building should be penetrable, that you should walk through, and by walking through, having a visual perception on what was happening inside. So here are some notions that we clarify to ourselves throughout the tutorials and the discussion. So the new intervention does not follow the rules dictated by urban design, seeking instead a relationship with the city based on visual permeability, transparency. So these were for us guiding concepts. So here you are seeing some intermediate solutions that we were thinking about two elements, one with the restaurants. These elements here for us was the house of the cook. We wanted this, here we identified four moments: the market, the passing through, the house of the cook, and the restaurants. So here the things are each have their own block. Here are studies about how will be the theater. So that and for us, we were like we were saying, like when you study anatomy, you have like the anatomic theater when people are seeing the dissection of the corpse on human bodies. We thought that one of the way to make this dramatized, to render almost epic this thing of having being taught about how to cook might be performed in a dramatic space, even with the use of light from above and so on. So here we were thinking about three units, of these classes, restaurant, connected between each other, but we were not happy. So we worked like on parallel things, and it was not easy to make them come together. This notion here is it was the student here, he was obsessed by this building by Le Corbusier in Argentina, near Buenos Aires, La Plata. this notion of transparency. This he read the book by can't remember the author, book by Colin Rowe and Robert Lusky about transparency in architecture, and the two authors mentioned this house by Le Corbusier as an epitome of transparency, and clarifying that transparency is an idea of, by way of architecture, revealing the spatial narrative of a building. They did make a clear distinction. They say there is a kind of transparency which is like glass, but is banal, you see through. And then there is this quality of transparency which is achieved through the tools of architecture. It has to do with framing, it has to do with what you let to be seen, how to build a spatial sequence, how to control the visual perception of things. So this is a student who did a, in order to say you are talking about it, then you build a model, because it's nice to talk, but if you really want to possess and to penetrate these secrets, you need to go through the whole process. So he did the model, he took the challenge and he did the model. He read carefully transparency. Here, these two examples that are very famous are used by Colin Rowe to show phenomenal transparency being the use of glass, and the transparency, which is a proper quality of glass, and literal transparency, a phenomenal transparency, which is for Colin Rowe, it was well clarified by this villa by Le Corbusier, where you look at the facade and there is this large opening, and from this large opening you can have an intuition, an indication of the spatial organization of the building behind the screen of the facade. Another notion, this is just to tell you that it's important to look for references, because there is no project that you can, I mean, unless you are really born Le Corbusier, but even Le Corbusier went into the Orient, there is a need to feed our creative powers. It's important that we look for food, for mental food. You know what you're looking for. Like here we were, because we wanted to contrast the dictatorship of town planning, we were looking for examples where the plastic quality of architecture is being dealt with. And when the movement of the observer is important for this perception. And we ended up by picking a reference in this beautiful building designed by a Finnish architect, Reima Pietila. It's a Finnish pavilion at the Brussels International Fair, 1956-1958. It's a wooden building. It is amazing because there is this repetition. There is this kind of I don't know, shift set off of the facade on a modular basis. And the same shift is in the which you have in the plan is also in the roofing structure, and the building looks like different things from different points. So we made a lot of trials and errors, and finally we try to adapt. But you see here there is the building, which is like the new building is set along another line, and not and the old building is marking like the fencing off this area, which is public from the road. This is okay. This is a mess. I don't know what happened, but it's the writings. Okay, next up. We started here thinking about how to organize activities in space, and we thought first of all about the market, because we said, okay, we decided that we keep the underground. The accessibility to the underground is crucial. the market should be related to the ground level, because people access from the ground level and because the cars are below. So, well, which configuration? So we thought that we went through. We explore. We try to reinterpret this idea of the covered road. So the market, we opened up part of the demolished part of the basement level, so that there is this linear element here is defining the market, which two levels, one which is above and the other below. You see here the model in the works in construction, and the underground level, and the market introverted facing onto the inner core. These studies propose of the functions. We said, okay, now we have this kind of shell, which has a plastic quality. The plastic quality is in a dialectic relationship with the city, and the city is in this block is represented by what remains of the old buildings. What do we do with the restaurants? And we thought that the giant, this structure you see here, you can see in the section the pillars and the beams that are supporting the roofing structure. We we kept this idea of the theater as the theater of taste, the restaurant as a theater of taste, and we thought that this theater should be nested below the roofing structure. And here is quite nice, because in this axonometry you see that we thought that here are the theaters of taste in this part of the building here, at different levels here, and here is the house of the cook. We called it a maisonette. It's a kind of, if a cook is in residence or there is a team, they are given a house. So really they appear. They are like they make their appearance. They pass through this elevated walkway, and people going to the market are able to see the cook reaching the cooks reaching the restaurants. This part here, we thought that was as an extension, as a public space, potentially used for open air markets, public events, and similar things. So here, the cross sections, where you see how we try to reinterpret the reference from the Finnish architects, and how we were trying also to make the building appear from the inside. We never give up sketching. This is for us, for example, exploring the relationship between the new building, its structure, and the existing facade of the market. We wanted to have an in-between space. We wanted that there was at least in one elevation, the facade of the old market was complete, but we wanted to give a shape to the gap between the old and the new. This is an age-old story, ever since Alberti and so on. There's interventions onto something and how the new and the old relate. These are renderings, not the best possible renders, but at least they give you a sense of the market. And we wanted to play with the dialectic between these giant, they are 4 floors height pillar and the roofing structure, and the horizontal slabs of the floors. For us, the stairs that reach the market at the underground level was to be a plastic element, giving character to defining an inner facade for the market. This is to give you an idea of this. It's like a crystallized trees. I know it's maybe we didn't, but the idea is that there are you are walking and you see that the pillars are their feet down, and above there is light coming from above. So there is the shift from that light to darkness at the underground level. This is some views from the interiors. This is one of the restaurants, and this I just put this sketch to show how it was more rigid and more repetitive, the solution, while in this case, each of the restaurant has its own position in relationship to the roof, and each has a different view on the interior landscape. Finally, this is the urban. So you see if you can judge. I'm open to criticism. I mean, here you see how the city is, and even these buildings, which is okay, not it has this long balconies. And I think that we manage, it's like if the new building is partly swallowing the old, eroding the old building, but what is the old building is still existence, its entrance is still an entrance. But for us, the issue was unlocking this sculptural element is like a counter balancing this blocky thing that the city of Latina is. And this is I think yes, this is the end. Thank you. So yeah, I'm available to take questions or to you Grigori, you choose what to do.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We enjoyed a lot. There was a very interesting structure. I mean, in terms of how to give an information, starting from the first part, moving slightly to the second part of the lecture, and then the final one where everything that what you said in the beginning is actually having a visual kind of documentation. That was very nice. I just wanted to ask if our students have questions to Cristina Pallini. So maybe you would like to ask something, or even our workshop leaders, if they are here. Ребят, если есть какие-то вопросы, вы можете спокойно задавать, не стесняйтесь. Я думаю, что Кристина будет рада ответить. Команда 1. Нет вопросов? Команда 2. Савелий? Нет? Вот это столько записывал, ты наверняка хочешь что-то спросить. Okay. I have to say that some of the things that you were saying, I was trying to write it down just not to forget, because it's every time when I watch your lectures and when I look what you do in academical activity and not only in academical activity, every time the things that you are saying that are really crucial for architects in Italy or in Europe, sometimes is just blowing my mind with the question why we're not thinking about buildings in the same kind of way with the relation to the urban context, because every time we deal with the building, we always look at the form. And I'm pretty sure that the Russian citizens and the Russian architects are really obsessed with form, because if you want to express something, it's always a form, a shape, a facade, and something like that. But when you say about organizing a spatial structure with the relation to the city context and with the relation of the inner system, this, I think, the most important thing for us, that we can, it's kind of a tool that we can use now and here as a design tool for our project. And I think this is amazing, personally, for me. So thank you very much then. So should we then try to talk a little bit about what we have done so far regarding the projects in Vyborg? What do you think, Cristina?
For me,